Hey everyone, I'm Anthony Geathers.
And I'm Gregg Weiss.
And we are good dudes with bad hearts.
No, literally.
Our hearts are broken.
I have heart failure.
And I have a transplant.
We never thought we'd have heart problems.
But we do.
And they're real.
And they suck. And that's why we're here.
To talk to you about heart failure,
heart attacks, and everything that comes with these conditions.
Each week we will bring you an episode featuring guests with heart issues.
We're talking about doctors and health professionals.
And we're talking about everyday people.
Like you and I. Together, we'll share useful information.
Providing useful lifestyle tips.
And how to prepare heart-healthy meals.
We'll tell our stories and hopefully make your hearts
better.
Welcome to Change of Heart.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. I'm Anthony Geathers, and my co-host is
Gregg Weiss.
Okay, and today we are interviewing Gregg today. So, Gregg, we're going to go into your history because if it wasn't for Gregg, we would not be doing this show right now. So, Gregg, let's go back into your history. Let's jump right in. Where did heart failure start?
This week makes 19 years ago that I had my first heart failure. And didn't really know I had symptoms, thought I had the flu. And shortness of breath was a real big part of what was happening to me. And I was playing in a band and had two shows in one day, and one was a private party up in on top of a mountain at kind of like an estate. And we heading up to the show, and I literally couldn't breathe, and I couldn't carry my amp. And my bandmate reached out, grabbed just a little 20-watt cabinet, little small thing, and took it up the hill.
How much did your amplifier weigh?
Oh, the amp weighed 20 pounds. I apologize. I said 20 watts. I'm trying to think about being interviewed instead of being the interviewee here. And amp weighed about 20 pounds and carried 200 watts. But
was the guitar player?
Yeah.
Okay, did he realize that you had an issue with that, or
he just thought I wasn't well enough to just, how do I say it the right way or wrong way? It's just, he just figured I had trouble carrying a piece of equipment up a hill. Mm-hmm. Not that I was sick or I was in heart failure, or I had been having heartburn mostly, and not understanding that that's one of the primary symptoms of having heart failure is an extreme heartburn. And it would come and it would go, and it was periodically getting worse than it was. And I went and played the show. We played 3 sets in the sun. It was a great day, but I'm still short of breath, and it's not panicking, but it's really concerning because I don't feel myself getting better. And so
while you were playing, let me say this, while you were playing, did you feel it while you were playing, or did the music
I'm going to say I did. I'm going to tell you I did. And it would get to a point where, as a bass player, and we talk all the time about playing bass, that it was, you could take a pause. You can let someone else take a solo, play some rhythm, sing a vocal. And in my case, it was heartburn, panic, paralysis. And I physically couldn't breathe. I'm remembering it all now as if it were yesterday. And the only way to describe it is it was self-hurtful. That I didn't reach out. I didn't say I had a problem. I didn't say I was having a heart attack. I didn't think I was having a heart attack. And yet I was in an extreme heart failure. And went on, played 3 sets from like 2 to 5 p.m. And then we played another show from 8 to 11 p.m. And all I kept thinking about was, am I going to make it through this, that I can breathe, play, and don't die on stage? And it's kind of like a real concern, because there are many musicians out there that literally just die on stage.
Okay, now you mentioned that you played two shows.
Mhm.
So you had a one that we said was earlier in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other one that was in the latter part of the evening.
Mm-hmm.
What was going on in between your shows? How were you
Trying to
feeling at
sleep
that
in my
point in
car, actually.
time? Okay.
Just
But how were
trying
you?
to.
But even when you were sleeping in your car, were you uncomfortable or were you?
Yeah. Oh, of course. Oh, of course. I mean, literally heartburn that is paralyzing. Literally, I don't know if I felt chest pumping, but I just felt the fact that I was like drowning in whatever it is I was, and all I wanted to do was be relaxed and calm. And that didn't necessarily happen at all. It was just, I have an obligation to play. I have an obligation to be here, and I got to fulfill this obligation. And that's just the way it was proceeding. I mean, I had a great time playing. I had a great time being with my friends. I had a great time jamming on stage, and I'm ripping my bass. And that was like on a Saturday, and then Monday morning, felt like I had the flu. Went to ER down the street, and then you know I get the news that I'm really sick, and that I have an appointment with a cardiologist in 15 minutes, 3 miles down the road.
Wow.
And that's when he explained to me that I was in pretty much an extreme heart failure. I'm gonna go get these pills. It's gonna mellow me out. It's gonna stop the anxiety that I'm feeling, and that on Tuesday morning I'm gonna have a catheterization. And that was literally, because I can remember the date of when I had to go in, was going to be October. It was actually October 1st in 1994, to be
Whoa.
exact. Was my heart failure. And I was scheduled, and I had to cross state lines. It was down in New Jersey, and what I didn't know was that my catheterization surgeon was actually a family friend that I'd actually played golf with before, and at that time he was actually the cardiologist for the New York Giants.
Oh, nice.
So I felt very relaxed at
Okay.
that procedure. And it was literally 19 years ago to the week that
Okay.
that I had my first heart failure.
Wow.
So,
Let me ask you this: was there any point in time? Because obviously you mentioned that Saturday you had the gigs, and then Sunday you had that full day where you still had the process where you were kind of like feeling sick. You go in on Monday, you think you had the flu, but you find out that you're not in like good shape per se. So, was there ever a point in time where you thought that you might die?
oh yeah,
Okay.
it isn't so much that thinking that I was gonna pass right there, but the probability of feeling better was about zero.
Wow.
And literally, it was just lying on the couch. Literally, it was just figuring out how I was going to change my situation and get better.
Was that on your on the Sunday before
Yeah,
you went there on the Monday? So,
yeah,
so Sunday you're lying there and you're
yeah.
just contemplating, how do I take care of this problem?
How do I take care of this problem? And in hindsight, I probably should have just gone to an ER. But I had always been self-resourceful. I'd always been
Kind of like
self-confident.
me.
Well, it
Just
it's hard to. This is how we're programmed and conditioned to not deal with things sometimes, and you have to take a second look at things, because uh, something I had heard way later on was, don't believe everything you believe. And I know that I spent the first 40 years of my life believing everything I believed. And the issue became that now that you're sick, now that I didn't even know what was wrong with me, but I knew something was wrong. I didn't have the excessive fluid buildup. I didn't have the general heart attack terms because I didn't really have a heart attack. I really had a heart failure as far as I was concerned after seeing the doctor and scheduling my catheterization. So this is literally 19 years ago to the week that I got my first catheterization, and that experience was more eye-opening than I thought it would be.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't know what a catheterization was. I didn't know.
This is what I want you to do. Explain to viewers who are watching this what a cardiac catheterization is.
Oh boy. Well, it's a common procedure. It's a test, an invasive test, where a surgeon makes an incision in the lower part of your private region and inserts wires, and they are literally checking the status of your heart, your arteries, your veins, and they can give you a diagnosis exactly of the state of your heart and the state of your physical condition. And today they're going through the wrist. I've had catheterizations in my neck, which will eventually lead up to talking about those two. But this was the first one, and the story goes that had to get up at 6 a.m. had a literally get driven. I could have drove, but this is it becomes an issue bigger than you with your family. So
sure.
I got driven down to the hospital and all prepped up, and you get your jitters and you get nervous, and it's just like you're going on stage, except this time you're having surgery.
Sure.
And the place I was at still considered one of the top places in the region country for catheterizations, for surgery, for all kinds of medical needs. And one of the things we talk about on the show is we're not naming names. We can't. It doesn't serve anybody any purpose. Good news, bad news, whatever.
Can you interrupt me for a second?
Yeah.
Question. How long, what's the prep time for the catheterization?
It was probably about 2 hours that
Okay.
you get
and now in that 2 hour period, what do they do in that 2 hour period?
From what I remember is the first thing you get's an IV. They want to see where you're at, unmedicated, untreated, and they want to see your pulse, your vital signs, your oxygen, and they want to see that probably in hindsight, for a solid hour, so that they can get some real data on what they're going to look for when they go in you. That's it's a great question, because I think one of the reasons I'm talking about this is if you've never had this done, people have, beyond a million questions. They have panic and they have fear and they have questions, especially from somebody who's never gone through it before. And I'm giving you my firsthand experience about what I went through starting from 20 years ago. And
I had a more modern version of it. Mine was
you were catheterized?
Yes, catheterized. Yep.
Oh, good. Okay. Yep. So let me continue on.
You had it from the private parts, and I had it from the wrist.
So, this is what I'm saying. So basically, I didn't know what all the points were, but eventually, after you're monitored, they got the place I was at. They basically come in and give you sedation for the examination, and you're on a gurney, and they wheel me into a hallway. And the only way I'm going to explain my experience, I'm sure it's different from everybody else, or maybe you were there when I was there. This was 20 years ago, and they had so many catheterizations to do, literally almost at the same time, that I was lined up in a gurney row of at least a dozen gurneys that I could see. just like at any national airport where the takeoff is during the early business hours and the planes are lined up 10-12 to get off.
All the planes
runway.
lined up next to each other. Yes,
That's how they had the gurneys set up, because there were at least five or six surgeons doing catheterizations in like 10 different rooms all at once. Wow. And so they had.
So you were literally doing an assembly line of catheterizations.
Oh yeah, I was number 4.
Wow.
I was number 4.
Okay.
And they wheel the first person in, they wheel, the second person in, and literally, I hear alarms and I hear the words code blue. And the second person getting the catheterization was having a stroke right there on the spot.
Having a stroke while they were getting the catheterization.
Oh yeah, and I'm there on the gurney and I'm waiting for this for me, which isn't. My response is going to be a little bizarre, but I'm going to say it anyway. I see rushing past me are 4 people running a gurney with somebody on it through the doors to get immediate medical attention to save this person's life. Whoa. And the only feeling that came over me was perfect calm. The only feeling that came over me was, today is not my day, that it happened to somebody else. And that the numbers are so in my favor right now to not have happened what just happened to what I just saw.
Wow. Did you have in your mind the mindset of like, man, better you than me?
In a bizarre sense, if it was going to be a percentage and a number, that it did happen to somebody else. And I don't know if that sounds selfish or greedy or disrespectful.
No, that's good. I would be the same way.
But it brought me a sense of relief in my own condition, because I didn't feel like I was going to perish that day or the day before or leading up to it. But I knew. Yes. It was a sigh of relief, and being second, 2 people left to go. They wheeled in the third person, wheeled in me, and I'm about to get catheterized. And at my catheterization, I end up seeing this guy, family friend, literally cardiologist for the Giants at the time. And so I had a lot of confidence going into this that whatever was going to happen, they were going to find it. And I'm being catheterized, and there's 3 50-inch monitors in front of me, and there's hardcore computer data on one side, and in the right hand side there's some pictures and all the pertinent data to all the electronics that are hooked up to me, and in the middle screen was nothing. It was black. It was silent. And I'm not sure if there was a camera on the end, but my doctor says to me, he goes, "What do you see?" I said, "I see nothing." He goes, "So do I. I don't see anything." And I don't know if it was a blockage. I don't know if it was an anomaly. I don't know what it was, but he decided to put stents in me at that time. And that's what happened. So I go to the recovery room, and I'm basically getting stabilized, and I'm waiting for my prognosis, and my doctor comes in and says to me, "Look, you have congestive heart failure, and your heart is not pumping to really keep you alive. And we're going to fix this one way or another." And there were 2 hospitals. I can be literally sent into a top facility in the Bronx, or I can literally, as what happened to me, is I got shipped 45 miles south down to Newark, New Jersey, and transported by ambulance. And now I'm further away from my family than I was to get the catheterization in the first place.
Okay,
And
let me interrupt you for a second.
Mhm.
Explain to the viewers what's congested heart. Define congested heart failure.
you need your heart pumping at roughly 50% capacity to stay alive. Most people are at, they call it an EF. The EF for normal people is between 60 and 65%. And I clocked in a whopping 18.
Oh, you were at my number.
I was at your number.
Yeah, you were at my
And
number.
it was bad. It was, I had no idea it was bad. I had no clue. I just struggled with whatever I was doing. So in any event, I get catheterized in one hospital, transferred to another, because the team that revived me and brought me back was in a further south location than where I was living over the border in New York. And
Okay.
now I'm in Newark, New Jersey. And like you, who self-admittedly walked into a hospital to
Yes.
check into an ER,
Yes.
I'm already on the other side being catheterized and ambulatory, and the check-in was there was already a bed for me in cardiac ICU at a top hospital. So now I'm literally on the 8th floor of a building in a place I don't know where I'm at, and I don't know anybody there. And I'm basically introduced to my new doctors, and they're going to diagnose what's wrong and then help me. And I remember waking up, and I was waken up by one of the strangest human beings in my life, and I remember his name, but I'm going to protect the innocent here. And he wakes me up in this jovial clown like good morning, and he's like, "How did you sleep?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't really sleep at all." He goes, "This is because you have sleep apnea." And I don't know.
You found this out? Did you know that you had it in the past, or this is something new?
No. As a matter of fact, it was one of the symptoms of my heart failure was the fact that I had sleep apnea. And my sleep apnea was so bad that he said to me that the nurses were betting on how many seconds over 2 minutes I was holding my breath when I was sleeping.
Oh shit, dude, that's crazy.
And the winning answer.
You were practicing for the swim team, for the USA swim team, for the Olympics.
What I was told was that I was able to hold my breath better than a scuba diver for literally, I was at 2 minutes and 24 seconds. That was the magic number that the nurses were betting on. And whether I would be more or less was what was happening. And I had no idea. I mean, I couldn't hold my breath for 2 minutes if you clocked me right now, let alone conscious. But what I learned is that eventually you get so tired, you have to pass out. You just can't stay awake. And that was my sleep apnea issue. And so I literally, and this is going to sound very strange, but they gave me a sleep test in the hospital.
Okay.
And I got wired up to, this is literally in 1994. I'm literally wired up to a Windows tower with a 20-inch CRT. And I'm wired. If you ever had a sleep test, you would know you get hooked up with like 50 wires to your skull and the rest of your body, and you can never sleep from this thing anyway. Well, in the middle of my sleep test, I ended up jerking out the power wire to the computer.
Whoa.
I literally rebooted the computer, found my file, loaded the file, and resumed my sleep study. Which, I'm a Mac user. I'm I'm a Power PC guy. But
this is what you did yourself? You were doing this. You walked up and you did this yourself?
I literally sat there and figured out, how am I going to get through this? And it wasn't even like you can call anybody. It was just like, I'm going to do this. And I was at that point, I was such a self-proclaimed Mac freak and tech freak, guru wizard, self-acclaimed, self-appropriated fixer of problems that I literally hurled myself out of bed and continued and finished my sleep study. Well, he starts telling me that my oxygen level was falling below 40% in my sleep. Now, awake, even sick people are at 90, 85%, and they put the thing on your finger.
Yes.
But when I passed out, I was choking myself that my oxygen level fell below 40.
Mm.
And he wakes me up and he goes, we got to treat your sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know what that is. And so now that I have heart failure, I also have sleep apnea.
Okay.
Lo and behold.
Now, assuming the sleep apnea obviously starves you of oxygen, do you think that was a contributing factor to your heart failure?
I believe so. One of the answers that I was given was that a virus had attacked my heart, and that virus caused the congestive heart failure.
Okay.
And I just got to live with whatever the doctors are telling me. And whether it's true or not, who knows what these real diagnoses are. In any event, they're looking at the numbers. So
my question to you is, before you continue, did they ever identify that particular virus?
No.
Like heart failure, they never did.
No.
So you just had the generic
yes.
virus.
Absolutely.
Wow, that must have you never had the you didn't think to yourself like, what the F is this virus all about? Like, what's the name of this virus?
When you're lying there after the fact, no, you don't. Okay. No.
So you're thinking more survival at that point. I'm assuming.
Literally, it was staying alive and breathing. You're being force fed oxygen. They're telling me I'm going to have oxygen when I sleep, even after I get out of here and get set up on a CPAP. That I'm going to have supplemental oxygen to keep me alive. And that happened for about 4 years, 3-4 years.
So 4 years
having supplemental oxygen in my
4
sleep.
years on a CPAP?
No, I'm still on a CPAP. That's at least 19 years this week. Actually, I'm on a BiPAP, but that's another episode. But I literally had a machine that produces oxygen. It's called an oxygen concentrator. And I had to put about 2 liters of oxygen into my airstream with my CPAP in order to get supplemental sleep that any normal human being just breathes regular air. But that's down the road. My hospital stay in New Jersey lasted 10 days of tests and probing and being poked and prodded, and I got wheeled at least to 10 or 15 different rooms around. I'll say it is Newark Beth Israel Hospital down in Newark. They call it Newark. And the most amazing thing I would see, because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know the nurse pushing me around. I didn't know the doctors taking the tests. But what I saw that gave me so much hope is every room I went to, you'll always see this room dedicated by, this room sponsored by, equipment paid for. It was literally all the same name. It was literally Whitney Houston. And that Whitney Houston had donated millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment and building rooms and giving of herself to her community to make sure that thousands of people got great medical care, and because she was from East Orange. And then the other name that was probably in 2 out of the every 10 rooms I got wheeled into was Luther Vandross. And being a bass
Okay.
player, you and I are both major Marcus Miller fans, and
That's right.
that Marcus was Luther's producer, but to see that kind of outpouring of their resources into their community, it gave me a sense. For the first 10 years, I was telling people Whitney Houston saved my life.
So
Because
now
she
that
did.
you were comfortable, with the fact that they contribute to communities, which means that they obviously were a good hospital. So was there any surgery involved after that?
Say that again. What was the last part?
Was there any surgery involved?
Oh yes.
Did you get procedures done?
I was gonna say at the end of the 10 days they had, because they don't tell you these things when you walk in the door, but I was getting slated for a defibrillator.
Okay.
And I had my doctor, it was literally the first defibrillator she ever inserted into a human being. And
So your doctor was a virgin defibrillator surgeon?
well, it was interesting because I mean she told me that, and I'm like, look, you just don't hesitate, just go for it. You know what I'm saying? If you hesitate,
that didn't make you nervous at all. The fact that
No.
that was the first
No.
time ever installing a defibrillator in a human being.
No.
Really? Just you,
No.
man.
No.
I give you
The
a lot
guy
of credit.
behind her was like the top guy in the region at installing these things, and a lot of these hospitals are teaching hospitals. So like you knew when you were in the hospital for a few days that when the team of like 12 people are surrounding the main guy and they're all getting their experience, this is what you have to go through.
Sure.
The only funny story I'm gonna tell you, because I'm definitely a little out there, is I had been given a book as a gift, and the book was written by Dave Navarro of the Chili Peppers.
It was Navarro from Jane's Addiction, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yep.
Yes, and it was the book he had written, and the back cover of the book was the wedding picture of him and Carmen Electra.
Oh wow! Okay.
I don't know if you're Carmen Electra, and they had gotten
I know
married,
that
and the image of the back cover photo, I don't know if we'll edit in later, was them dead naked in a morgue on gurneys. And it's quite unique and interesting. And so the question I had given was, they said, we have to put you out for 10 minutes to install it and calibrate the device. And my question was, can you please take a picture if I flop like a fish? And they said, no, we're not going to do that. And I said, all right, whatever, I'll live with that. But that was, that's the sense of humor and outlook that I take going into this.
I don't think you want the surgeon to, if they agree to it, I would think that you don't want the surgeon who's performing the procedure, you don't want him taking the picture.
Well, no, I mean, regardless, but it was just the concept that if you're going to calibrate my defibrillator, I'm pretty sure I'm going to flop like a fish. I mean, that's what it's going to do to you if it goes off. So, at least I was unconscious, but I made it out of there and went home to recover and self-employed.
Before we talk about going home, let's define what does a defibrillator actually do, because a lot of people are going to be watching this channel, not going to necessarily, if they have.
You've heard the word, but what a defibrillator is if you've ever seen on TV, if somebody has a heart attack, they grab paddles and they put the paddles on your chest and then they go clear and they literally hit you. In my case, my defibrillator was 800 volts. And when they told me it was 800 volts, being a bass player, I go, how many amps? And they basically tell you. they can give you 1,000,000 volts, but it depends how many amps. And
it's the amps that really the ones that carry the
it's
power.
the amps that are going to get you.
Right.
And basically, they said enough to kickstart your heart. And that's what a defibrillator does. Is an implanted device that throws out a massive amount of voltage, and the sensor is basically the one I had at the time in 2004. 2004, yeah, because it's 20 years ago. 2004, when I had this done, basically your probe is exactly like a meat thermometer. It's basically a needle with a sensor on the end. And that's what they literally run into your heart. And you don't feel it. You don't know about it. You feel the battery because it's this new lump in your chest, but you don't feel the probe. And it's this device that's going to monitor your heart. And if your heart gets into what they call an arrhythmic disorder or a heart attack, that it's basically going to jolt you alive. Wow. And I'm fortunate enough that 11 years went by on that battery and that probe that it never went off. I was medicated. I led a much healthier lifestyle, and it never went off. And in 2015, I had to get the battery replaced because it was its term of service, and went back to the hospital. And ironically, the same woman who put her first defibrillator battery and defibrillator in a human being, me, was doing my replacement, and I felt very comfortable about that.
Okay, good. Wait, let me back. I'm going to backtrack. So you had the defibrillator installed, and then you went home.
Yeah.
So what was next after that?
A lot of thank yous, a lot of being grateful, a lot of being over grateful that I got fixed. I have a second chance. I have a new lease on life, and that this is a the start of the second half of your life. And little did I know what was going to happen next, but just outside of my heart was figuring out I had to move. I had to find a new place to live. I had to reestablish what my work ethics are and how I was gonna use my computer skills to stay alive and be productive in order to keep this whole thing going, because I don't do manual labor. I wasn't doing manual labor. I didn't have a labor intensive job. Everything was in my head and my hands. And moved upstate and had to find new doctors and start living a new life. And I did. I was my medications worked, all the basic water pills and heart regulation meds, most of which you're on now, I was on. Been on them now for 19 years, and it was a very, very normal life. I mean, you feel normal, right?
I do now.
Well, this is my point, is when you felt really bad, you didn't really know how you're going to recover.
No. Well, I also psychologically didn't think in terms of, for me, I was always thinking in terms of cough medicines can take care of the issue, not realizing that it was heart failure, not realizing that my right lung collapsed. Like, there were just a lot of little things that I didn't consider. And for me, it's like, well, water and medications will take care of everything. And when I say medications, I mean over the counter, basic stuff. Not thinking in terms of, something. My heart was pumping at 18%. Imagine what it was before I even went to the doctor, and just hearing it a little higher, but just the fact that I busted my ass, almost intentionally going crazy on stage and performing like a maniac, and then I put the water weight on, And then I realized, holy crap, after visiting the doctors, you got 3 cardiologists sitting around you going, how the hell did you make it here?
Yeah, right.
You know, how did you? Yeah, that was probably one of the scariest moments, I think. That's when I realized, you know something, Geathers, maybe you should have showed up a little earlier. Maybe that macho man bullshit wasn't going to work out for you.
Well, you're lucky you didn't take cough syrup, because cough syrup is a barbiturate.
It's a barbiturate.
And if it does anything, it'll stop your heart.
That's right.
So there's the big piece of advice: don't drink cough syrup if you have chest pain.
That's right.
Although
That's
that
right.
makes no sense, but it's true. And
well, let me ask you this: what expectations did you have after having the defibrillator installed? And did you go through any sense of depression? Was there any anxiety in the process?
Not in that. No, not in that. The big reevaluation was exertion. The big reevaluation was getting my sleep disorder corrected. Actually breathing oxygen and getting a restful sleep at night to heal my heart and the rest of my body. I was oxygen deprived long enough, and my blood restricted long enough that once I got better, it wasn't so much an exercise; it was just stabilizing everything.
Got it. All right, so the process. When you say exertion, did they place limits
1/10
on
of your
how
workout? Yeah, no gym, no hard walking. Mostly it was nutrition, eating right, and not stressing myself to a point that my heart was going to palpitate.
Okay.
That was your big awareness. The big awareness in having a defibrillator is the 180 number, which was your top pulse rate when you get your blood pressure done. That's what they're calibrating your defibrillator to. Okay. And the recall I'm having now is when they told me I needed to get a stress test. And I didn't want a stress test because I knew if they're going to push the limits of my heart, I know my heart can go to 220.
Okay.
You know, but I knew that if I crossed that 180 threshold, I was in the red zone of kicking off a defibrillator while I'm getting a stress test. What I did, because you know where I live now, I got a hill. I was walking up and down my hill. I'm getting ready for this treadmill. I'm doing 5 laps up and down, 10 trips every time I went out the house, and I am gonna beat this stress test. And I get to the stress test, and they get me on a treadmill, and they're like, your heart isn't pumping. Your heart isn't pumping enough. We have to do a nuclear stress test and give you a dye in order to see where your heart can go. And I'm like, I really don't want you to do that. And they're going, why? I said, because you're going to kick off my defibrillator. The last thing I want in a stress test.
You were telling the doctors this.
Oh yeah. Well, it was somebody I never knew. Little did I know that guy was actually leaving his practice after 15 years later that week. So what did he give a crap? Okay. He's just getting through another stress test.
Okay, so the stress test, what does that consist of? When you're doing a stress test?
Usually they wire you up and put you on a treadmill, and they want to see how hard your heart will pump. But you have to understand, and you understand now because you're on Carvavidol, you're on torsemide, you're on heart regulating medications, that the harder you can push, it isn't necessarily going to push your heart anywhere.
I'm not going to go anywhere. Actually, to chime in on that, I was telling the doctor when I got back to the gym, I said to him, I was trying to push my heart rate past 120 beats per minute. And he said, you can try all you want. It's not going to go anywhere.
No.
And because of the medication. How do you pronounce it correctly? The Carvavidol?
Well, the generic name is Plavix. There's Plavix, but you're not taking Plavix. Okay. You're taking the generic brand, which is the same medication. Sorry to tell everybody. But it's called Carvavidol.
Yeah, no matter what happens, the heart rate's not Carvavidol, yes.
Well, it's
that makes it so that my heart rate is not going anywhere past that.
it's essentially a restrictive medication for your heart to blow itself out. Long story short. And if I'm wrong, I don't know if you could sue me, but I did sign a disclaimer saying
But
I'm
also,
not a
funnier about that,
medical expert.
it's so strange to think that the medication is that powerful that will limit your heart rate. Like you can't even go past a certain point.
We have no idea, and that's why when people talk about really pain-killing medication, always listen to your doctor. Your doctor knows everything, especially if you say you don't think it's working. It's working, and they're trained. They're passionate about healing you, and don't ever think your doctors aren't, because when you have the least hope, these are people that have your back. And there's so much more to this story to tell that it's we haven't even gotten to the middle of the juicy stuff yet. No, we'll get there. And in 2015, I had my battery replaced, and in my case, my doctor decided not to change the wire, and I had my the battery flipped, and I'm just going to say
this is in the LVAD.
No,
not the LVAD.
This is still the pacemaker. I had a defibrillator, and I'm 99% sure it wasn't a combination pacemaker, because nobody ever said to me my pacemaker was doing anything. Just I had a defibrillator, and technology changed over time. Okay. When they replaced it, my battery, it was still just a battery, but in 2017, up until from I'm going to say 2008 till about 2015, 2017, I didn't have insurance, and I was seeing a place locally when I had it, and they kept me on because they had my records as long as I kept paying, and I was getting bumped from my medical group.
Right.
I had a cardiologist that left the practice, and no one told anybody. And when my prescriptions ran out, they thought I was just seeing a doctor to get pills, that I wasn't seeing for regular checkups. And when I informed them that didn't your doctor quit, and I didn't know. And the doctor they assigned me was
see if two things working together. Okay.
What?
Okay.
I thought you were asking me.
Yeah, two things working good. Yeah, two things working against you.
Oh, yeah.
So you lost your doctor.
I had more than two things working against me. But yeah,
yep.
We'll go.
I'm just doing the obvious. So you lost your doctor. Your
Yeah.
doctor quit, and then you didn't have insurance. So what the hell was going through your mind at the time?
I was dead. I was dead as a doornail. I wasn't going to get any help. I wasn't going to get any kind of relief from this situation. And I'm not going to get real heavy and technical about it, but in New York State, it was like in 2011, finally, they had put federal health care on the issue, and they removed cross states service from insurance companies covering you. So all that time I was getting treated in New Jersey, and New York was covering all my insurance needs. And New York State had to take over my medical plan. It wasn't just me. It was 1.5 million New Yorkers also lost their health plans. And, you can raise your fist and cry blame to whoever. But long story short was I was able to keep seeing doctors I was seeing. And by the time that it had all caught up to me, I had my surgery, and I'm going to skip the whole story about the insurance side of getting my battery replaced. But in 2016, I basically been self-employed, and I needed a supplemental income, and I took a part-time job merchandising in the food industry. And literally, I was able to get insurance coverage from New York State, and I had previously taken tests for which I had to pay full amount for, and that was when the doctor dropped me because he thought I was only seeing the practice in order to get water pills and Carvavidol.
Okay.
For whatever reason, the doctor's appointments, were the last thing on my mind, as long as I was getting my pills and keeping my, my balance in check. So,
He dropped you intentionally for that reason? That was what he just decided.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, literally, if I could find my medical records, I can prove all this. But I'm not going to hold a bitter attitude towards people who make up their own minds about whatever and put it down on medical records, and their word stands and my word doesn't. So I'm not going to go there. And the ironic. Here's the story: is I end up getting a check on my defibrillator, and this guy comes in, and I'm paying him full price to check out the validity and condition of my defibrillator. And the results were, hey man, you're great. Everything's in check. Your battery is full. Your probe is in check. Everything's working great. Okay. Now I'm dropped from the practice, and I actually get insurance coverage. I'm not going to say who it is, but it's just the greatest company ever. And they've been so good to me, saving my life, that for the tens and hundreds of thousands of people they help, I hope they get the same treatment I did. In any event, I find out after I get insurance that I'm able to go, 2 miles up the road and get to the best practice in the area with the top doctors in the region. And I'm going, wait, I went from having nothing to now having access to these real doctors. So I make my appointment. I go find the new cardiologist. He says, okay, well, we're going to check you out. And I go for my appointment, and who walks in is the guy I paid full price to 3 weeks ago to take the tests that I just paid for. And now my insurance
wasn't that the same guy?
Same guy.
That the same guy who dropped you?
Same guy.
Wow.
Because the machine he runs is only authorized by certain techs.
Whoa,
and so he's the operator. The guy comes in, and I get my results, and they're the exact opposite of what I got from the same guy 2 weeks ago.
Whoa.
But here's what he says to me. He says, your defibrillator has no power left. What? Oh yeah, it's done. The wire.
So this
in
is the
your
same
heart,
guy. Let me get this right. This is the same guy prior to that who says
literally
everything was great.
Literally,
everything was awesome.
I said, hey dude, don't you remember me? Don't you remember me?
Wow.
Oh,
he didn't think you would.
Yeah, no, he didn't think I'd remember, because I must have been some kind of stupid, unconscious heart patient in some third-rate medical practice. And now he's literally testing me, and I'm getting the results from my doctor. And my doctor says to me, he goes, by the way, that wire connecting your heart to the defibrillator, it's worn out, it's exposed. It is shocking the lining of your heart, and it is about to break in half. You need emergency surgery. And I'm like, excuse me? I don't, in the words of David Lee Roth, I don't feel tardy. And
so that's kind of like, well, let me get this right. So you had, you technically had a jumper cable. The positive was kind of flying around inside your heart. I mean, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like the positive of a jumper cable was just kind of.
Well, it wasn't a jumper cable. It was a meat thermometer that was just stuck in. That's what this is. That's what a defibrillator and a pacemaker. That's how it connects. It's a probe.
Okay.
Just like a heat thermometer for an oven or your food, a food thermometer. But it's a lot more high tech and it's a lot more complicated.
So yes, doctor.
But But I mean, just to be in a place. Excuse me, what did you say? I missed you.
No, the same doctor who, the same doctor who basically told
well,
you
it wasn't
was
the doctor,
cool.
it was the tech. It was the actual
surgery.
tech. Yeah, it was
Okay,
it was
got
the
it,
tech
got
because the other when you move out of the New York City metro area, your test resources are obviously limited, and to get the same kind of health test from the same kind of equipment, they actually have one operator traveling around to 4 or 5 different medical centers up here. And when I was so shocked to see the same guy. I mean, I'm a people person. You're a people person. I mean, like somebody, a celebrity who met you, 15 years ago, remembered you 15 years later. And this is the kind of recall that I have with this guy. And then my doctor comes up to me and he says, by the way, every test result you just paid for from the other place is the exact opposite we got from this guy right here. And you need a emergency surgery. So I've already had one hospitalization. Now I'm going, okay, so what's next? What does emergency surgery mean? Now? Tomorrow? And he says, well, he goes, you've made it for 14 years this far. He goes, probably in about 2 weeks. Now, that was a little concerning because now the idea in my head is the wire is exposed, shocking the lining of my heart, and is so brittle it's going to break in my heart. And so that was the next step of the story. And 2 weeks later, it was.
But emergency surgery sounds like.
What was that?
To me, emergency surgery sounds like an emergency surgery sounds like within 24 hours.
That's
like
what I thought.
Something that would happen like
exactly.
that.
No.
Waiting.
I agree. And it basically the scheduling and the availability to get everything ready was 2 weeks. So that was the longest 2 weeks of my life to that point. Because now how it's explained to, well, here's the surgery. What happens is I have to get the probe removed and replaced. And after 15 years of being planted in my body, it was explained to me as if you ever see a tree in the ground and there's ivy growing all around the tree on all the branches, that's the probe in your heart. And that after all this time, muscle tissue has grown all around the probe, and we got to remove it. We're just not pulling out the probe. It doesn't work like that. And it was literally an 8.5 hour procedure to remove the one probe and replace the pacemaker. The pacemaker I received and the defibrillator took 20 minutes to put in, but it took 8.5 hours to get it out. Yeah, who knew? Who knew? And it's like, like I'll say down the road, you wake up, you don't know whether it's day or night. When am I getting out of here? Well, when you're able to get up and get out of here, what's that going to be? Probably about 6 hours, 7 hours from the defibrillator surgery. And now I have 3 wires in me, and I have a pacemaker, defibrillator, and now all that's getting monitored. And so I figured, hey, I had the first one, I'm going to bounce back. And I basically did. I was back at work in 2 weeks, and I was doing my physical labor job that I took to get health insurance. And everything was pretty good for about 2 years. Now, on this defibrillator.
Well, let me ask you this. But before you continue, during your job, you worked for Insider Markets at the time?
Well, I'm not going to mention names. I was a third-party merchandiser in a, major supermarket chain. The name you mentioned is a franchisee of the company, and they own 28 stores.
Got it.
and they're you see
Yes.
one name. There's actually two other names. There's the brand name of the store, and then there's the corporate name in which they're all under. But they're very good at letting you know who they are. It's a private family business, and they own, in that area. Well, they even own, I mean, they own stores everywhere. They own all the stores up here. They own all the stores down where you are. But yeah, I didn't work for them, and you know, that's
My
where
question to
that's.
you is this:
Excuse me.
because you mentioned the job as you mentioned
Oh
the job
yeah.
as history manual labor.
Basically, I was a food merchandiser. I reset planograms. So to give you what's that?
You had no concerns about your heart. You said there weren't any concerns about your heart.
No, I mean, no, I felt physically able. The one thing I was real concerned about was a rotator cuff in my right shoulder, because it was the one thing I knew everybody eventually had a problem with. Just to give you a fast job description, if you walk into any supermarket and you walk into the peanut butter and jelly aisle, there's going to be 4 feet of 8 feet of shelf space. There's going to be 7 shelves top to bottom of different heights and different stackings. And within it, you're going to have maybe, 200 different items, a couple brand names, couple varieties, couple different sizes. And I had to be on site at 8 a.m. I get my plan. Basically, you pull everything off the shelves, you clean the shelves, and then you restack everything in the new order they provide you. And, you see the insides of how a supermarket runs, for good or for bad. And that's the physical part. The physical part is shelf one. You never really go into shelf one except to grab something off the floor. But I'm on my hands and knees going all the way to the back wall that's 4 feet deep. And that's the physical aspect. And at the same time, you're also on a ladder on the top shelf. And whether it's coffee, olive oil, or bread, or whatever it is your assignment. And a lot of times, third party people, not the stores, do this. And so I had done it for from 2016 till November 2019, and in 2017.
How did you feel? Like no shortness of breath? You were breathing fine?
No, I was on top of my game as much as it could be. Okay. My heart, my EF had improved. It doubled from 18 to 36%. And all my blood work was in order. Everything was going fine. Nothing was in my way, until a day of reckoning. And awesome. I can keep going and going and going and going. I'm gonna, I know, now I'm going to put on my interviewer hat and know that we're an hour in. And I'm just going to say that everything came to an abrupt halt on November 18th, 19th in 2019. And it was one of the worst days of my life.
Let's talk about that as well. Let's talk about the abrupt halt.
I'm gonna start it now, and the way I'm gonna tell you is, it started out as like the best day I had at my job in 3 years. I ended up transferring to another company. And just they knew I worked hard. They knew I got everything done. They knew I showed up on time. Whether I was traveling 5 miles or 125 miles to a store location, always there at 8 a.m., always doing what they asked, never complained, never this, never that. And I had been given a raise. I had been given a new responsibility that was going to cut my workload in half and keep the same rate of pay. And it was a job promotion, and I felt really great. And at the end of that phone call, it all went downhill. Everything started over. The heart palpitations, the shortness of breath, the panic, and the fear that I hadn't felt in 15 years. It all started again. All I thought was, man, I just got to put some oxygen on and I'll be fine. And I had been off oxygen for 5 years already. And
you had to be shitting bricks.
No, nothing got better that day. I spent the next 2.5 hours with my man pride sitting on my couch, lying in bed, sucking air like I thought it was going to be the last breath I was going to take, or I was just going to pop back and just get on with my normal life again. And that didn't happen. And it's a I don't want to say it's where the real story starts in my heart failure, but it was certainly the continuation of my heart failure to if you see the logo behind me, the hill represents the change of heart. And where I was going is a real dark, desperate place. When I had received the news of my promotion, I didn't know I was having the first of 2 heart attacks in one day. And my defibrillator didn't go off. My safety net didn't shock me. And so I just thought I would eat some pills and recover.
There was nothing at all?
No, nothing.
Nothing.
No, that's how my day started. And I had an appointment to get a car fixed, and I had to meet somebody and, basically, drop off the car or wait for it to get fixed. And that appointment was about at 2 p.m. And about 12:30, I wasn't feeling any better. And what had come over me was extreme dehydration. And what I had done was I literally drank a half quart, almost a whole quart of Gatorade. And I figured, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to man through this. I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to drive over there and, handle what I got to handle as a man. Car appointment.
Wait, what time did you get your promotion? What time did you get the promotion? You said early that morning?
8:30 in the morning. It was on a Friday because you don't work on Fridays. And, in hindsight, maybe I should have just gotten sick on my job, but I wasn't that lucky. And it was about 12:30 and I felt bad. And I drank the Gatorade and I didn't feel any better. And then I started guzzling orange juice, figuring that's going to wake me up with the vitamin C and the sugar. And I blacked out.
Dehydrated.
No, I'm right at this point. It went off. My defibrillator went off.
Okay.
I blacked out and I woke up 5 feet away, staring at the bottom of my refrigerator like I was waking up in an episode of Breaking Bad. And it was the first thing that my brain registered was, you're in Breaking Bad. Something just happened that you were unconscious. You woke up on the floor, and I don't lie on the floor, but the only thing I know about Breaking Bad is everybody woke up lying on the floor. And they were staring at something, and I was staring at the bottom of my refrigerator, and I'm saying to myself, why am I staring at the bottom of my refrigerator? I was just drinking orange juice. And the second thing said to me,
passed out.
I didn't pass out. My defibrillator went off. I got knocked out.
Oh, okay.
I had the Mike Tyson punch. And the only thing I knew to do was to carry on. The only thing I did was I stood on my feet, I collected myself, I got in my car, and I drove to the car appointment. I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand. I had very little bearing at that point, and I went to the car appointment, and things didn't go as planned. And I was leaning on my car from my sheer life. I was knocked out. I was woken up, but I knew I couldn't let my guard down and let anybody know I was sick. I was unhealthy, and then I just went on my way. Nothing's going to be wrong. I didn't realize that I didn't realize I was having my second heart attack in one day. And I don't know if I should have started with this an hour ago, but this is where it all led to. And basically drove home and said to Susan that we got to go to urgent care. And that's the beginning of the next part of the story is getting to urgent care, having them tell me you have to go to the ER, which was literally a quarter mile across the street, and them telling Susan he has to go ambulatory. He cannot. We know how you got here, but we're not going to let you go there like this. Something can happen.
Wow.
And
quarter mile away, but they needed an ambulance.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when I got admitted. And once again, I got admitted ambulatory. This was my second out of 3 surgeries that I got admitted ambulatory. And avoided a lot of paperwork to get in, so speaking. And that's where it's going. Just on a side note, we're an hour 11 in, and I got a low battery alert. I should have left my laptop plugged in. I don't know if you want to keep going or, I'm tired.
Let's keep on going to about an hour 20. Now I'll edit this part out, of course.
Well, yeah, no, it's.
Do you want to do a part 2?
Do. Let me take a sip of water. See, I don't know if I want to get to the juicy part an hour in, or you start that way. I could do it again and start that way.
I would do this.
What you feeling so far?
We ended.
Also, I need you to turn up.
Oh, I like it a lot.
I hear me great in my headphones, and I'm barely hearing what you're saying. I don't know if you're just off the mic or.
1 second. Go in. Mic settings.
Yeah, it's like a 1.5. I need you on a 4.
Settings on.
I got to get you an SM58.
No, I need an SM58. It's stronger. What about now?
Oh, much better. Yeah, I was having trouble hearing you the whole time.
Got it. Okay. All right. So I boosted the volume. All right. So I know that I'm going to take out about a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, just give me like a 3 count, 4 count, or something. I'll jump back in.
Okay. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, and we're back. So, Gregg, what's the deal with this situation where you had 2 heart attacks in one day? Explain that. That's the one thing.
I had 2 heart attacks in one day, and how I found that out was I had been ambulatory admitted into the hospital, and they had called my team to let them know that I was now in the ER and going to be admitted into ICU. And my doctor, who did my pacemaker replacement with the defibrillator, came in, and he carries around the same machine that I had paid for the tests in 2 locations. Excuse me. And the amazing thing about technology is what can be recorded and reinterpreted. And he is scanning my history, which he knows most of. And he looks at me and he goes, "You had 2 heart attacks today." I said, "Well, I'm pretty sure I had one because the defibrillator went off." He said, "No." He goes, "You had a heart attack at 8:30 in the morning."
Oh my God, I like how you're telling the doctor how many you had.
Oh yeah. And
Tell the specialist.
yeah, well, when he told me I had 2, I realized that I when the first one must have occurred, and it was very mild, and then that the second one really set off the defibrillator and knocked me off my feet. And his response was, "Did you really want to kill yourself today?"
Oh.
And I'm like, "Well, no, I don't want to kill myself. I want to live." And he's reading.
How you know?
Well, the machine he uses when people have a defibrillator, they give you a home unit that you can check it in, and it does a scan, and it creates a report for your cardiologist. And it spits out of the machine like a stock market ticket tape. And mine kept going like the joke is a CVS receipt, and you know, halfway to the moon, and this thing is running like the stock crash in 1929, except it's my pacemaker report, my defibrillator report, and he's reading and he's reading and he's threading, and this thing's going on for like 15 yards of paper. It's like he's going to have to replace the roll of report. And he's like, "Oh my God. And I'm going, "What's the matter?" He goes, you basically wore out your defibrillator. And, he had just put it in 2 years ago. And, I had gone through a defibrillator experience where I had 11 years on a defibrillator with nothing. And when just to step back a little, when they change your battery in a defibrillator, they have to test it. And the guy from the defibrillator battery company, St. Jude, comes in and says, "I have to thump you." And I'm like, well, what's that? And he goes, "Well, we have to test the battery before we take it out of you." And
Thump you is like. Wait, what's the is that an acronym?
No, it's a truth. They actually set it off at a level that they can test it, but it won't send you into cardiac shock. It's called a thump, and it is a thump. It's just it's he has to do this to everybody because people who get them removed have to have this done because they need the check. And
do you feel it when that happens?
100. You feel that 150%. Now, I didn't feel it when it saved my life. Okay. And one of our guests, when he was talking, basically called it a Mike Tyson punch, which it is, but it'll render you unconscious, like when it really works. And so this was just a check to see that it worked. And that was the story of the battery replacement, but basically to find out that I had essentially wore out the the defibrillator. He said a lot, not all, but a lot. And it might have a kick or two left in it, but they weren't doing whatever they were doing. It was staying in me for the long haul. And I was basically admitted and put into ICU and basically had emergency stent surgery. And what had happened was the stents that they put in me in 2004 clogged, and that clogged caused the heart attack. And while it was clogging, it was causing my new symptoms to occur that I had before I was sick in the first place. And that's how I got into the next round of the downhill of what was going to happen to me, because I had the stent surgery. When you have stent surgery, I didn't know they keep you awake for that, but they keep you awake for that. And, you're basically catheterized. And while they're catheterizing you, they can insert the stents. And, I don't want to, prepare you for, any inevitability, but, hopefully this is a chronicle and a log to see that.
Yep.
And long story short is my heart didn't recover from the new stents, in the sense that I had no more cloggage issue, but I didn't have a pump that was flowing my heart. My EF was basically falling in half from when I had gotten admitted before the heart attacks.
Okay, so you went from 18
to 36, built it up, and then like chutes and ladders, got knocked down the chute.
Knocked it down again. So
Yeah.
literally it was back to 18 again.
And this is the first half of my story. And I don't know if I ran long, but it's a long story, and there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of blood tests and tests along the way that I'm grateful to a more powerful being. I'm grateful for a lot of things. I'm grateful for my Susan, who's been there for me this whole time for the last 19 years. And the end of being grateful never ends. And when we pick this up again, we'll have a lot more stories, a lot more detail, a lot more interesting facts about my road of heart failure, and what it's taken me to get 3.5 years back out of a transplant. And when you talk about me being the reason for the show, I'm going to flip the table and say you're the reason for the show. Is it's literally been over a year since we hooked up after knowing each other in high school, and I had told you my story, and we're just two bass bashers kicking it around in different bands. And the funny thing about being bass players is that you yeah, there it is. The funny thing about being a bass player is you're friends with all these bass players, but you're always apart from each other. Guitar players get to hang out, they get to go jam with each other, but bass players are like solitary individuals. And whenever we hang out, we always have the best time. We have the best talks. Being friends with bass players is the greatest camaraderie in the world, because we all understand we're never going to see each other on the weekends. And
never going to be both times. We're never going to share the same stage.
Ever. We don't do that. Although I got a feeling you and I might, but to turn it around in the sense that the last thing when we started talking about a project was ever going to be heart failure. Yeah. And when we hooked up and you went to Europe and you came back, and unfortunately what happened to you happened to you, it changed the direction of our purpose. And, I'm going to say you changed this, because the last thing I ever wanted to do was considerably relive all the experiences I had to have a change of heart. In one respect, you want to tell your story, you want to get the word out, you want to explain to people who've never been through this before. When I was asked to speak to people who were going to be in my condition, talk about it. I want to get past these things. I want to live my life. I want to get back on track. I want to do things that I was doing before. And then you know, and the closer we became as friends, the more, you know, you decided, I decided, we decided to change the focus. Is that Zeus?
Yes. This wants to play.
And
Okay, see.
I wish my cat would jump on me. She's upstairs. And you know, it became something bigger than both of us. You know, even though the electric bass is one of the biggest things in our lives that we focus on, that we perform with, that it's our outer shell, it's our man pride. And to come up with the Change of Heart podcast really, it brought me into a new purpose, and I'm going
Yeah,
to thank
I
you for
feel that
that.
way.
And you know, it's something we're going to continue. It's something that is never going to go away. It affects 30 million people in America right now. It kills close to 700,000 people a year.
Heart disease is
You
the
know,
number one killer. And well,
heart
more
disease is the number one killer globally. You know, and lo and behold, number 3 is preventable accidents. Go figure. Or
that means that
accidents in
people
general.
who shouldn't be texting. That's usually what it
Well,
consists of.
that's part of it. I mean, you know, people who shouldn't be, you know, I'm going to say it, cleaning gutters.
Yep.
You know, I mean, car accidents are part of it,
Heart.
but
That's right.
preventable accidents, you know, even on the job or wherever, is the third
Yep.
largest killer of people. And you know, it's something I think that you and I fell upon accidentally.
Yep.
And you know, hopefully people are gonna watch this and learn from it and share it. And if it ever occurs to them, they can use us as you know, some outside opinion and reference from somebody who's gone through it with no BS attached.
That's true. That's true indeed. Well, think about it. We're literally, I hate to say it, you literally learn on the job. It's like, it's not it's literally on the job. And not just the production side of it. I'm talking about the actual experience of having heart disease. I learned a lot the last couple of months. Just obviously from having you as a partner and a longtime friend, and then interviewing people and hearing all these different stories. And the one thing that one of our guests said, of course, Kelvin Smith, said that you hear stories and you think you're in a horrible place, and then you hear stories that are far worse than yours, and then you go, you know, I'm not too bad. You're not too
Well,
bad.
we heard that yesterday interviewing somebody saying that you know, as much as you think you're in a bad place, there's always somebody who's got it worse.
Absolutely.
And that's the truth. You just can't get away from that, and I think that's a big part of why we're here, and the help we can provide people who either, you know, can't reach out, don't reach out, and it's going to be you know, some type of help to somebody, even if it's me just talking about it and getting past it.
Yeah, but also, funny, I find that for me, this show has become very therapeutic in many ways. It really, really has. Because you always go through the phase of, like, man, how the hell did I get here? Yeah, even at a small level.
I know how I got here. Yeah, no, I don't have to. I don't have to worry about.
At least you can say that. Like, where with me, it was like, you know, history of heart disease. Supposedly, yeah, I do what I can do, and then all of a sudden, it's like, then you're stricken with it, you have it, and then it just kind of sucks. You're like, man.
Well,
what do you know?
You asked me a question before about, you know, when I had my first heart failure, and you know, what was it like in recovery from you know, the first surgery, which wasn't even a surgery, it's a battery inserted into, you know, underneath your chest and shoulder blade. And what I'm going to tell you in hindsight is you got nothing to worry about for 15 years if you got no stents. You know, catheterized, that's awesome. Everybody should get catheterized. Although the guy who put the supervisor who watched my first pacemaker go in said to me at a later time, he goes, the only time you should ever be catheterized is if they think you're going to die. And there's your food for thought. I mean, I'll tell you how many times I got catheterized after the transplant, and I'll put up that chart one day and the list of procedures I went through. But it's all good. But I'm going to save the rest of that
Yes.
for part 2.
Part 2.
Because
That's right.
if I start, I'll literally pass out talking. It's been a solid talk that I've never done before. So
Well,
I want
this
to
is
thank
gonna be-
everybody for during this part 1 of Change Our Heart podcast interview of Gregg Weiss, co-host, and if anything, it would lay down the experience of the cred that got us here to this point, and reach out to us. We're at changeofheartpodcast@gmail.com, changeofheartpodcast.com. We're setting up a website so you can interact with us and see other interviews. We're putting out some merchandise, and we like it. We're going to be wearing it. And look at the cat. Oh man, that's a mask and mantle if I ever saw one. So I'm gonna bid adieu at this point, and we'll pick this up very shortly, and we'll do part 2.